Hey everyone, Kevin P. McAuliffe here for Lowepost.com, and I'm back again with the next lesson in our Conform series, and I'm excited to continue where we left off in Lesson 5, where we talked about creating dailies inside of DaVinci Resolve to work with inside of our non-linear editing application. Now, in this lesson, what we're going to do is take those low-res proxy files that you've created your offline with, send your timeline back to Resolve, and we're then going to relink to the high-res material inside of Resolve so that we can eliminate all that proxy footage and be left with our original log space master footage. All right, let's keep our intro short and let's get started. All right, what I'm going to do is Command or Alt and Tab into Avid Media Composer. Now, as you can see, I've created a very complex timeline here of something that I do want to send to Resolve. But what I've also done here, just to throw those two supers up onto the screen to give you an idea of workflow. Normally what I'm doing when I'm doing a workflow like this is I'm putting all of my titles, graphics, and everything on separate layers from my footage, just so that if I do want to do what I am going to be doing now, which is sending this timeline with these three layers to Resolve, when I send the final graded clip back to Media Composer, whether it's as individual clips or whether it's as just one clip that's going to be the entire timeline, I will have those elements separately so that I can animate them however I need to animate them. So what we're going to do is we're just going to export an AAF from Media Composer. Now, one thing that I do want to mention, and I did talk about this in Lesson 5, that we chose the Apple ProRes Proxy 422 workflow. Now, why did I choose that? Many people might think, well, Kev, so you could send that footage easily to Final Cut, or you could send that footage easily to Premiere. Well, believe it or not, that footage is also very easy to send to Avid Media Composer as well. Why? Because ProRes is an Avid-friendly codec. Now, I am going to have a lesson dedicated specifically about codecs coming up towards the end of the course. But what I basically mean by an Avid-friendly codec is that that codec is one that I can fast import into Media Composer, so it's not like anything has to be recompressed. The files are just going to be taken, rewrapped as MXF files, and they'll be all set to go. Okay, so let's take this clip and let's right-click on the timeline. I'm going to come down to Export, and we're going to export this to the desktop. We will call it our final master offline.aaf. And I'm going to save it. Now, much like again inside of Final Cut where you're exporting an XML file, or in Premiere where you're exporting an AAF file, that's pretty much going to be the export process. I'm now going to hide Media Composer, and I'm going to Command or Alt and Tab into DaVinci Resolve. Once inside Resolve, again, much like we had done in a previous lesson, I'm going to navigate down to Import Timeline, and we're going to import an AAF, EDL, or XML file. Now I'm going to navigate to the desktop and I'm going to select our final master offline.aaf, and I'm going to say open. Now, again, much like before, load AAF, we're going to link to the source camera files. Now, this is where this is exceptionally important to keep in mind. Now, one advantage that we have by linking to the source camera files is that our dailies or our proxy files have burn-in timecode. So if we see burn-in timecode on our footage, we know that something's wrong. Also, in our case, we're also lucky because our original footage is in log color space. So as soon as we see that footage in log color space, we're also going to know that something's up. Now I'm also going to use sizing information, and I'm going to import the log messages as markers. We're also, because we're going to be doing our online and our final color grade, we're going to want to set our timeline's resolution to be 3840 by 2160, which will match the footage that we're going to be relinking to. I'm going to say OK, and you'll now see that we have our timeline inside of Resolve. Let's just bring this down a little bit here. And to be honest, these layers are massive, so we're just going to bring their size down just a little bit here. Perfect. Very nice. Okay. And you'll see that what we have pretty much matches what we had inside of Media Composer minus those titles. Okay. Perfect. Now, again, we know something's up because I can see this timecode burn in. Now, if I come over to our media pool and I select one of these clips and I say show me its metadata, you'll see again, it is Apple ProRes 422 proxy at 1920 by 1080. So we know that this is not correct. Now, there's actually a bug inside of Resolve that will not update the metadata window when we relink to the footage, but I'll get to that in just a second. What I also purposely did when we originally did lesson 5 was I spread the media out across multiple folders, because I don't want to get into a situation where I'm going to try to trick you by saying, oh, look how easy it is to relink to everything when it's all in one folder. I don't want to get into that. That's why I put things across multiple folders. But again, this is where, as the Conform editor or artist, it becomes exceptionally important that you are organized, that you have all your media organized in the original, in our case, log footage folder. Now I call this log footage. This could be called raw footage. That's just going to have folders upon folders upon folders upon folders of footage. And then you're going to have the exact match inside of your dailies folder. This way, it's a simple swap from one folder to the other. And speaking of simple swaps, let me show you how this is going to work. I'm actually just going to copy the name of this log footage folder, and I'm going to Command or Alt and Tab back into DaVinci Resolve. Let's go back to the media pool, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of these clips. Now with the clips selected, I'm going to right click on them, and what most people think that I would do is I would come in and unlink the selected clips and then relink to the new ones, but I'm not going to do that. Because, again, organization is important. I have everything mirrored in that high-res folder. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change the source folder for these files. Now what gets to be interesting is the fact that I have selected multiple clips across multiple folders, not just clips that are all located in the same folder. So instead of being specific, let me just take one of these clips here and I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to right click and I'm going to say change source folder. Now you'll see how specific this now gets with the change source folder window. You'll see it gets right down to the specific folder that clip is in. However, if I select multiple clips across multiple folders, what Resolve is going to do is it's going to go to the highest most root folder, which in our case happens to be the dailies folder. Now the dailies folder for the offline, but for the online or high-res media, we want to go to the log footage folder. And I'm just going to pull this window out of the way for just 1 second, and I'm going to say change. And you'll notice that as soon as I do, it's now immediately updated this footage to be that original log footage. There we go. And now what we can do, since it is in log color space, is I can select everything, right-click, come to 3D LUT, come to RE, Alexa log C to Rec 709, and this footage is now all in the correct color space. Now I'm just going to save this folder for just 1 second because I do want to point out the fact that if you take a look here, you'll see that I have all the in and out points. What's also happened is the thumbnails have updated to now show the fact that that burn-in time code's not there. However, here's where the bug comes into play. You'll notice that when I select one of the clips, it hasn't updated the metadata information for this clip to be Epic Adventures 09 FO 4K with a codec of Apple ProRes 422 HQ. Now what's interesting is that if I unlink the clips and relink them, I can get that piece of metadata to update. However, I can't get the metadata to update where it says 1920 by 1080 to be the actual size of the clips. However, just having that path information there under the clip name tells me everything I need to know and verifies that I am using the correct footage. If I go back to my main timeline, you'll see that I can now scroll through. All of this footage is at its highest resolution, and it's now ready for me to get in, grade, and either export or send back to the nonlinear editing application to which it came from. All right, now as always, if you have any questions, you have any comments, or ideas for upcoming lessons or courses, I want you to head on over and post them in our forums at lowepost.com/forums. And if you have any questions for me, you can always send them to kevinpmcauliffe@gmail.com.